everyone, Carmine from New York here with photo class number 582. We're getting close to photo class 600. Subscribe, for goodness sakes. Hello everyone, welcome back. Carmine from New York, a photographer since 1973. I need you guys to do a few things for me. Comment below on your favorite camera. Give me a thumbs up, please. And subscribe. It's free. No credit card required. All right, guys. We're going to talk about the SONY a100 DSLR. This was Sony's very first DSLR camera after they bought the Minolta camera division in 2006. Now, if you remember a few months back, I did do a full review on the A100, but I just grabbed it just last night when I went out walking around the neighborhood, taking a few shots that you can see right behind me on the screen. Now, I grab this camera very often when I have just walking the dogs, Dax and Dexter. And we go out to take a few shots. Now, it's the winter. You don't really get those bright days, as you can see, kind of overcast. But you get these images. If you think they were taken with a film camera, you're not half wrong, because inside the Sony a100 camera is a 10 megapixel CCD film-like sensor. It is APS-C size, which means there's a crop factor of 1.5. Now, the memory card, if you remember from the last review, is a CF card, okay? It goes in on the side. In fact, I just finished downloading the images off the CF card. Now you'll notice that the card was a 2 gig card. Now why a 2 gig card? Well, that was the technology back in 2006 when the Sony a100 was made. You don't want to put a 64 gig CF card in there, because the software and the hardware, to be honest, of the CF card reader will probably have a very hard time using it in the camera. So I just buy a bunch of 1 gig and 2 gig CF cards from SanDisk. You put it in and off you go. So why do I keep grabbing this camera when I've done reviews on it? Well, it's a lot of fun, especially with the Minolta. Yeah, Minolta, don't forget, Sony bought the Minolta camera division. And this is the 35-70 autofocus lens. Now, it's not that it's autofocus because it has an autofocus motor in the lens. The autofocus motor is actually in the camera. It's a screwdriver type. Something very unusual about this camera that I talked about in the last review I did on. In fact, I'll put a link to the last review in the description of this video. It has these 2 dials. See them? I'll reflect them so you can really see. It's this one and this one. This one is a full PASM dial for program mode, shutter priority, aperture priority, and manual. But this one is the best. This is a dial that has all those functions that you would normally see on a button on the back of most cameras or on the top. So the first thing we'll talk about is this little logo, and it's the metering mode. And it asks you, what kind of metering do you want it to do? Do you want it to do center weighted, multi-segment, or spot metering? This camera has a spot meter. A lot of times, especially if you guys remember 35mm film, you had to buy a separate spot meter, which today they still make, but they're around $200 for a good one. The next thing on the dial is the flash setting, and it asks you, do you want to do fill flash? Is the focusing. Okay, so it asks you, do you want to do a single spot autofocus? This is my favorite, you use this all the time, is your ISO. Now what you have to do is use this wheel for your selection of your ISO or any of the other functions, right? And then you press OK. So this is, I selected ISO 800, you click it, and now you have ISO 800. So we'll go next. Now remember, when you turn the dial, right, we're going to do white balance. You turn the dial, but you have to wake it up. You have to turn it on by pressing the center button right here. Okay, now we're on white balance, and that's the screen you get. And it asks you, what would you like? Auto white balance. You can select your own Kelvin. Next, is the dynamic range optimizer. You have your selections there. And then you can change your color. All right. Now remember, a lot of guys were actually editing or setting their parameters, right, for contrast, etc., in the camera. Like that's contrast, your saturation. Now you guys probably do all that now in post-production in your software. Sharpness, right? But you can actually do all of that in the camera. Now remember, this is 2006 technology. That's why this camera sold for $900 when it came out without a lens. Today, you get them for $99. That's why, if you remember in the beginning on the thumbnail, I said, why did I buy 3 of them? Well, because the prices did come down to $99 each with a lens on eBay. It's the only place I can find them in working minty condition. Make sure you get it from a good seller. You know the points about buying on eBay. He's got to have no less than 99% feedback. He's got to have hundreds of feedbacks. He's got to tell you it's working, it's not working. How's the lens condition? Does it have fog or haze? Stay away from that. You don't want that. If they show you a photograph with the screen on and working, you know it's working. Try and get it with a battery and a charger. Okay. If they don't say CF card included, that's okay. A lot of people don't want to get rid of their CF cards. So that's how you make sure you're going to get a good working one. And make sure it's been tested. Make sure he says it's been tested and working. Feel free to contact eBay sellers and ask them all these questions. And if they say, I don't know, or if they say, worked the last time I used it 10 years ago, stay away. Okay? If they say it might work, stay away from all that nonsense. Okay? So I picked up 3 of them. $99 each with a lens, with a good minolta lens, and you just put them away. Because, number one, they're not making them anymore. Duh, right? But CCD cameras, they really hold a special place in any photographer's heart that remembers what film used to look like. Look at these colors. They're not that fake CMOS color where it's just fake. I mean, it's the only way I can explain it. Look at this. You would think that that was definitely done on film. Here's a little fun I had at night getting light streaks, 30-second exposure. But $99, you really can't beat it. Another thing I like about this camera, the A100 with this lens, is everything was made in Japan. The body was made in Japan and the lens was made in Japan. It makes a big difference. One thing I like about this camera that people really should pay attention to is that it has in-body image stabilization for $99. A DSLR with in-body image stabilization. You turn it on and off right in the back. Sony back then called it steady shot. And you get like 3 or 4 stops more of camera control. It's wonderful. In-body image stabilization. So when you have to use a slow shutter speed because it's not so bright outside, you can hold it steady and the sensor will move to compensate for your shaking. As you get older, you might have a little shake too, all right? Or if you breathe, just your breathing when you're taking a shot. Or some people press the shutter too hard and you might get a little movement there. It corrects for all of that. And you get more keepers with this in-body image stabilization on the A100. So I want you to enjoy all the photographs. There's not many. There's like 6 or 8 photographs I put up because I don't want to flood you guys with too many photographs. But you'll get a lot more keepers with this camera with the in-body image stabilization. So remember, it's the A100 from Sony. They run about $99 on eBay in working condition with a lens. Make sure the guy throws in a lens, especially this one. This 35 to 70 is just wonderful. Highly recommended. Very sharp, nice and crisp.